Kunlan Ablat Gemara. Let's quickly go from Kufmem Gimel Amud Beis Mishnah. You had the person passed away, left behind children, older and younger ones. The younger one is very young. And he's bichu hagdeilim etanachasim. If the older ones then decided to improve the assets, Kufmem Gimel Amud Beis by the Mishnah, they decided to improve the assets. They invested money. He's bichu, so any improvement to the assets has to be divided equally amongst all the heirs. And we'll explain in a minute what's going on. Im amru, but if they said, see, but they said, guys, here's our estate. Let's divide the Yerusha. And the Bezdin was lazy. We are going to invest in everything else, but we're not doing it for you guys. We want to divide it. If they clearly specified that they want to divide the estate, otherwise we are going to invest ourselves for our own benefit, then they are the beneficiaries of that benefit. Big machlekes are showing exactly how much benefit can they take. According to the Rashbam, they only take, for example, there are three brothers, they only take the benefit from their own property. In other words, you've got three brothers. They are a third. Or let's say it's one brother who said, I'm going to go ahead and invest. He's a third. He gets the premium of his third of his field. And then the rest, they divide equally amongst the three as part of the Yerusha. That's the view of the Rashbam. Taisa says no, that this brother who told them to split, and they didn't. He gets the entire premium. In other words, the land was worth, each property was $100, now each was worth $150. He gets all that extra $50 he gets for each property, including his younger brothers. And the third opinion says that no, he's like a person who went into someone else's property like with permission, and he gets a share. So he gets like an oris, a sharecropper, he gets 50%, and then the balance they divide equally as Yoshim. Okay, then the Mishnah continues. The same thing applies to women. The same thing applies to the children. We apply to a woman where she inherits from a husband. The Gemara will discuss how that's possible. If she improved the assets, if she improved the assets there, before they divided it, whatever benefit it is, it goes to everybody. But if she tells them, look what the husband left behind. Let's split the Yerusha. And if they don't, and she says, I'm going to go ahead and do my own thing, she benefits from her own investment. And the same for the opinions. The Gemara will explain why you need to repeat it. Says the Gemara. Said Chaviva, the grandson of Rabba, Mashmei the Rabba, the name of Rabba. When we say that before they divide it, if they go ahead and they invest money, they didn't say, okay, let's go divide. Didn't start talking about that at all. But we said if they don't say that, then they go ahead and they put money in, whatever the time in, whatever benefit there is, everyone equally divides it. He said, they use the money from the state to improve the state. So then it's not fair. Everyone has a share in it. They didn't divide it yet. They all get an equal share. They put in their own time and their own effort. Even though they didn't say, oh, let's divide the chasim right now. But if they went ahead and they put in their own money in their own time, then then any benefit that they accrue belongs to them. So the Gemara, it's not so. Said, even the father left behind, according to Rashbam, a cistern with water, and they need to have a lid on it, so they collect money for people taking water. So they make sure that everybody goes and takes water, pays for it. Or the Rabbi Eliezer says they have to make sure there's a lid so that dirt doesn't fall in the water and will ruin the water. Nobody's going to buy it from them anymore. Or Teresa says it's like a watchtower. They stand there and guard all the fields. They should go high up and watch all the guards of the fields and see from a distance. And anybody can be standing there. Anyway, so that's it requires their time and their effort. That's their effort. And yet it says, so any money they get in is divided equally amongst all the heirs. Why is that? Well, they have to stand guard and they have to make sure that nobody steals the water and so on. Shiny that what is it? What do you have to do by a dain? There's no hard work. All you have to do is watch it, make sure no one takes off the lid. So I feel the younger children can say, we could have done the same thing. Why should you get all the benefits? True, you did it and everything else, but we could have done it. So therefore, we're not meichel. And they have to divide it equally. Okay, they said, they said, let's divide the property. Look at our father left behind. Any benefit belongs to them. The Gemara belongs only to those brothers who put the time and effort in. Rab Safra Shavak Avu Azuzah. Rab Safra, his father, left behind a lot of money. Shaklina, and there was a number of brothers. Shaklina, he took all that money. Avad Boyizka, and he invested in a business which required someone to be very astute. Also, Achreita Bubedin, I didn't divide the estate. He didn't say, look what our father gave us, and I want to go ahead, I'm going to put the money in. And and he used the money from the estate. So the brother said, hey, we have an equal share in it. They went to Rav Safra. He said to them, Rav Safra is a great man, and there's no way in the world that he would stop learning to do a business to help you guys out. So it's as if he clearly spelled out to you that he's going to put the time and effort only for himself. And in Shulchan Aruch as well, we paskin that even though today we don't have people that standard, but if someone is like a Talmud Chacham, and that's what they do, then it's obvious they're doing it so that they can learn, and it's as if they're saying, I'm doing it for myself. Then the Mishnah said, Isha, a woman, she's been the Chasim, improved in the Chasim, and she goes to the divide equally. Why should a woman be different? And first of all, how does a woman get any assets in the first place? What means she yashin? Isha benichse yase maverte. What share does she have? How does she join the Yisayim? She doesn't yashin from her husband. If her husband dies, it's the children who inherit, not the wife. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah be Isha yoreshes. We're talking about a woman who yashins. So the number of examples, but one example is that some of the Shema give that. Let's say Reuven and Shimon, and Shimon has only one daughter, and this Shimon marries Reuven's daughter. Reuven only had daughters. Shimon had no children, and Shimon marries his niece, Reuven's daughter. Then Reuven passes away, and then Shimon passes away. So what happens to Shimon's estate? Shimon's estate, the only living, the closest member is his brother. And then his brother has no sons, only daughters. So it goes down to the daughters. And one of them happens to be the wife of Shimon. So she is the one who is working in the field. That's how she has a chelik in the Yerusha. So fine. But why should it be any different than the boys? So why is it that if she divides it, you tell me in the Mishnah that, that if she puts time and effort into it, that we said before the Gemara talking about she used money from the state, it belongs to everybody. Why should it be any different? And why do you even have to highlight that? So the Gemara, she has a woman, that the example I gave, that she inherits. Anyhow, Pshita, no. We would have thought, Kivon, since the lab dark limitra, women generally didn't do business as only men, is Afagav the like punish, even though she didn't spell out, hey, I am going to work this field, we should divide the field, I'm going to start, I can't wait anymore. So even though she didn't say that, why else is she doing all the work? It's like she specified, I'm doing it for myself. If she didn't say it, we don't make that assumption. Then it says, but if she does say, look what my husband left me. She was married to Shimon, and now she said, look, my husband left me. I'm going to put in the work. She openly said that. And then she is the only one who benefits. Why? That's exactly the same case as by the boys. What's the chiddush? Pshita, isn't that obvious? No. I would have thought. I would have thought that since that she actually enjoys, she has certain benefit. She enjoys the fact that people are going to go start saying that she's such a good woman, she's also full of skills, she knows how to do business, and then will make it easier for her to find another husband. So maybe she doesn't mind working for the children, and even though she said, I'm going to work it, I'm going to put it in the time and effort, maybe she's meichel and allows the children to have a share so that word will get out that she's a great woman. And maybe she'll look to find a suitable husband. That's what we would have thought. So we would say, Kiva the Shvichel Milsa, she's happy. The Amri Kotarche Kameyasme, that people would say, oh, look, how nice she is, she's working for Yisraelim, she'll be Meichel, and she'll say, I put in the work and effort, but you guys can have a share in the benefits. No, it doesn't work that way. She's no different than anybody else, than the brothers. An interesting halacha. When a man marries off his first son, it is a very, very precious and very dear, and he loves his children, but this is the first one. So they used to make weddings in a house. If he has a second house and he makes the ceremony for his son, the chuppah in the house and the ceremony in the house, That's tantamount to him saying to the son, "Here, you can have the house as a gift." Even though he didn't give him a star, kinyan, the house becomes the son's. And the Gemara put some conditions down, and the Gemara will conclude that there's not too much logic to this. So the Gemara, somebody marries off his son, but buys, and he gives them a house they should perform and have a ceremony. Automatically, they are kind of the house as if it's theirs, even though um, he didn't star nothing. The Dafka Gadol, only the oldest son. The Dafka Psalom, she marries a girl, a virgin. The Dafka Ishtay Deshayna, only his first wife. The Dafka Shesidish, only if he married first in the family. If he didn't marry first in the family, then the love is not that great, and you're not giving him a house. Says the Gemara Pshit, there's no question. The father gave him a house, and the house happened to have an upstairs floor. Bayis he only acquires the house and not the upstairs because the simcha is in the house, and that's all he gets. Bayis a house and the veranda in front of it, and the only way to get into the house is through the veranda. Well, how would you treat that? Is it automatically he gets the house plus the the veranda or not? Two houses, adjacent to each other, and you have to go through house number one to get to house number two, even though they're living in house number two. Does he also acquire house number one? Teku. All these things, wait till Mashiach comes, so they all come and answer. Meisel will ask you a question that says, the father gave over his house and furniture in the house as well for his son, or he's designated, this is where your wedding is going to be. Clay bayis kana, bayis le kana. So the furniture and everything else he is kana, but the house itself he doesn't get. Now, you just said a minute ago that if you perform the ceremony in the house automatically belongs to that son. So how come in this case it was furniture in the house, and we say that the house does not get transferred to the son? So Abimia said, we're talking about a case where the father has demonstrated he's not prepared to give up the house. And how does he demonstrate that? By leaving some of his personal belongings in the house. He shows, I'm not giving it up because my things are here. But Abimia says, you need to do something serious. For example, the father warehouse things, their products there. So therefore, he showed clearly he doesn't intend to relinquish ownership of this house. The doyam, you don't even need such a degree. I feel a shayvchet deyoine, even just a dove cut. Even let's say a vat with fish that is fried in oil, which is worth even less. If that's what the father left in the house, that means he's not relinquishing ownership. Mazutra married off his son, but he didn't want his son to get in his head that he's getting the house. So the Talmud suddenly hung up a shoe on the door. So he left. It doesn't matter what you leave. The moment he leaves something of his, if the father leaves something of his possession in the house, he's demonstrating to his son that the house is not yours. Rashi not going to marry his son, but told Rashi he left a cup of oil there, not much. Alma Mazutra said, Hani Trasmila, the following three dinim, Shavini Rabbanan established Kihilchasa Balay time. We made three dinim, but really there's very little rationale behind them. The case over here, you marry off the first son, and you give it, and automatically the house is his. What's the logic in that? Even though there is a small logic to that, then the Rishonim say, because it's your first one, the first chasna, you put all your effort in, and it's the oldest, and so on and so forth. Nevertheless, it's a hichos time. L'chayra, it seems to me that the reason why hichos time is, what about all the other children? Why only this son and not the other sons? And also, you're creating such enmity here between the children and jealousy. This son got a house, and this one didn't get a house. And yet, it's a halacha, that's the halacha. So it's a hilchas b'lei timer. It needs some more explanation. Another one, Ida, we learned before, if somebody writes, my entire estate is going to my wife. He didn't really mean to give it to his wife. He wanted her to be executor to mine for it. And we said a reason before. Because if he gave her some assets, of course it's a gift. But if he gave her all of it, we don't believe a father would take away all the assets and leave nothing for his own children and give everything to his wife. So obviously he wanted her to be the executor of the estate so that the children should behave and treat her with respect and dignity because they need her since she is in control of the purse strings. Idach, and the third thing is known as Maimed Shloshim. What's Maimed Shloshim? If you have a lender, a borrower, and then a third party. And the lender says to the borrower, the $100 you owe me? Give it. I want it to belong now to Levi, to the third party, and you should pay it to him. And the din is that you don't need witnesses, you don't need a shtar, you don't need a kinyan. That in itself, Maimed Shloshim, is a kinyan. And this is Takazah Chamim. And it's a very strong Takazah. We learned before. In Gittin, another place, if somebody sells a contractual loan to somebody else, Reuben, Shimon owed money to Reuben, and Reuben sells that contract to Levi. If Reuben then turns around and says to Shimon, you know what? I absolve you from this loan. I'm making you the loan. You don't have to worry about it. The thing is, it's a good mission. I mean, Levi can come to Reuben for selling me a product, and then he took away the value. But Reuben still has the right to forgive Shimon. And why? Some Rishonim say because every loan has two liens. There's a lien on the property, and then there's an indebtedness to the person itself. You can only sell the lien on the property, but you cannot sell the shibud haguf, that indebtedness to me. That's by selling. But by maimish lashton, the tachame takame, that's even stronger than selling, and that's why it's so hard to understand. And that the money that Shimon owes to Reuben now automatically is transferred, not just the lien on the properties, but the very debt itself is now belongs to Levi. That's a big chiddush. Next Mishnah. Kuf Mem Dal Amud Beis. Says the Mishnah. Achin hashutrin. Brothers who are partners because they did not divide the estate. One of them the government has a job, and the job was to collect tax. It used to be that the government would go to every neighborhood and say, and every month go on a monthly tax, and every month they chose somebody else there. Today it's this family, tomorrow it's that family. I want you to nominate somebody to collect taxes. And now, if you collect more taxes than you're allowed to, you call the ganef. A moichis is a ganef. But what they would collect, let's say, the beginning of the month, but they didn't have to hand it over to the government until the end of the month. So for 3 or 4 weeks, he has use of this money. And if he invests this money and he makes some dividends or profits, the family can keep it. So the question is, who gets to keep it? The family, because the state hasn't been divided yet, or the individual who was hired. Not for them, so we say it belongs to the entire family, as Mar will explain. Chola, let's say one of the children got sick, the nisrape and was cured, nisrape mishalatzmai. Then his cure is from himself, he has to deduct it from his Yerusha. And we'll see later in the Gemara what we're talking about there. Says the Gemara, Tony, we learn high umnas, what kind of trade, or are we talking about kind of job, umnas amelech, working for the king. Working for the king. So the king comes along and says, this family's turn today to do this work. Because it's a family thing, even though you were chosen, you're working on behalf of the family, and since you didn't divide the estate yet, everyone gets an equal share. If they would have divided the estate, it would be you personally. So we learned. One of the brothers, they appointed him to be a gabbai to collect taxes, a policeman or a mercenary. If they chose him because you're part of the family, then whatever he gets is divided amongst everyone. But Imach was asked for the chosen for his personal skills, and of course, he gets the entire sum. Obviously, if it's chosen as a member of the family, of course, everything belongs to the family. He's extremely sharp, astute, very skilled. So even though they didn't specify that they asked for him because of his skills, maybe we can assume that because of his skills personally, and therefore he should get all the money. His skills is what caused him to be nominated. Since they didn't spell it out, it doesn't work that way. So we learned. One of the brothers, if he took $200, he took $200 from a family estate. We learned Titus, obviously he deducts it from his own because why should the family pay for his thing? And then he says, okay, if I would have been home, you would have to feed me, take care of me, like any of the brothers. But now I'm abroad. I went to overseas to yeshiva. I'm in a boarding school. I want you to pay my room and board. Okay, you don't have to pay for my tuition, but you pay my room and board. Maybe. The brothers say, no. If you're living with us, yes, we'll feed you, take care of you. But if you're not with us, we're not going to feed you. Why not? What's the difference if he's at home or abroad? You have to feed him. So feed him overseas. Supports Abhuna. Birchas habayis beruba. The birchas habayis means, okay, some say it's a practical thing, some say it's some metaphysical thing. Rabbeinu Chanan says a practical thing. The cost, let's say you have to feed 5 mouths, and now you have to feed 6 mouths. The cost between 5 and 6 is far less than you would have to feed only one person somewhere else. So therefore, they can say to him, if you live with us, it'll cost you X amount of dollars. Now that you're on your own, it costs a lot more. We don't have to, we don't have to pay out of our share that extra. But the Rashbam learns. I'll see in a minute. What do you call it? The Rashbam learns that it's a metaphysical thing, that the mazel, the collective mazel of a few people together is greater than individual mazel. So had you been with us, we would all have benefit from you being here. We all have more mazel. We would make more money. Now that you're away from there, our mazel is lower, and therefore, why should we pay you? Pretty Gemara, okay, but in other words, when he was home, yeah, it costs you $10 a day to feed him. When he's abroad, maybe it costs $25 a day to feed him. So at least give him the $10. Why give him nothing? And so Gemara Hachinami, you're 100% right. Yeah, you're 100% right. That we give him, we're not saying we don't give him anything. We're just saying we don't give him as much as he needs. We give him equal to everyone else. So the Gemara, the Mishnah says, he got sick. He uses his own money. Shalach Rabin Mashmei de Rabeloi. Rabin said to Rabeloi, you know when we say that? If it's his fault that he got sick, like the Rambam writes in Hilchos Deis, he ate very unhealthy food, and as a result of that he got sick, it's his own fault. So why should the estate pay for it? He pays of his own money. If it's not his fault, if it's not his fault, then he gets from the general family estate. Now there's a machlekes v'shayni, machlekes machrein. Two ways of learning. There's a capped medical bill and there's an uncapped medical bill. So based on Yeshami, one opinion says that even if you were not negligent, not your fault at all, then we pay all your medical bills regardless. But if it was your fault, so if it was a capped medical bill, then you have to pay yourself. If it's uncapped, then we say it's like Mazonis, we got to feed you, let us take care of your medicine, so we take care of it. That's one view. The other view learns the opposite. If it's your fault, we never pay. It doesn't matter how much it costs, how little it costs. But if it's not your fault, then we say as follows. If it's capped, then you pay yourself. If it's uncapped, we will take care of it. Now, what do you mean it's your fault? So the Gemara doesn't actually give the example of the Rambam. The Gemara says something else. Heichi dami b'pshir. What do you mean it's your fault? You got sick, it's your own fault. Rabbi Chanina, like Chanina said, the Amar Rabbi Chanina, Hakol b'dei shamayim. Everything's in the hands of Hashem. Chutz. So in one Gemara it says, Chutz b'yiras shamayim. They would talk about behavior. Everything in the hands of Hashem except whether you fear Hashem or not. That's your choice. Here we're saying about just physical ailments or physical circumstances. Everything is hashgacha pratis, chutz, mitzinim, colds, pachim. And there's two ways of understanding tzinim pachim. Either tzinim pachim means the cold drafts, or tzinim pachim are two separate things: a cold or a fever. That a cold and a fever is your fault. If you would take care of yourself, it wouldn't happen. Tosfos brings mainly in Ksubis, a little bit here, that tzinim pachim means if it's cold, very cold outside, and pachim means very hot outside. And one of you says that if it's very cold outside, it's totally your fault if you catch a cold. You know why? Because you could have put on another layer of clothing, warmer clothing, you wouldn't catch a cold. But if it's very hot outside, what can you do? What could you do? There's a limit what you could do to take care of yourself. So, but Tosfos there says in Ksubis, no, that maybe it's only if you catch a cold, it's your fault, but the sun also is your fault. You know why? Because you could have gone in the shade. You didn't have to stand in the sun. And therefore, both of them are your fault. Tzinim is cold and pachim is as a result of being very hot. So it says in Pasuk, Tzinim, pachim, tzinim, pachim, in fact, those people who don't care, go out there and they deviate from the normal way, they don't take care of themselves. But shayba and nafshay, if somebody takes care of themselves, yirchak mehem, they will distance themselves from these things. Next Mishnah. This is the concept of shushbanis. Shushbanis is a very interesting concept which you don't really have today. It's not even really brought down from yet it is in Hilchos Purim, brought down in brought down in Hilchos in Avelis. Shushbanis is as follows. It was more like a business arrangement. I invite you to my wedding. You eat and it seemed that they used to invite them not just for the wedding, but for the for the Shor Brachos, all 7 days that they ate and everything else. And then you would give me a present, sort of a payment for all that food that you consumed. But in return, I have to reciprocate that when you get married, I go to your wedding, eat and I drink and everything else, and I have to give you a present as well. If I don't give you a present, you can actually take me to a din Torah because it's like a loan. It's treated like a loan. It's in a business arrangement. Very odd, but that's how it was. So what happened the following? The father, the father made a wedding, or the father was invited to a wedding somewhere else. So he sends one of his sons to go and bring the gifts and partake in the wedding and so on. Then years later, that person now is I'm sorry, years later the son gets married, so that person now is invited to the wedding, and he brings gifts. The question is the gifts. The only reason why this son went to that person's wedding is because the father sent him. It was really the father. So the gift, now the father passed away. That gift that he receives, is it his personal or is it a part of the family estate? Says the Mishnah. Brothers, that some of them were sent by their father to go to different weddings, and they had to give gifts and partake in the wedding and so on and so forth. And then Chazra Shuzbanis, when the Shuzbanis, that person, whoever it is that they went to the wedding, later now he has to come back to these guys because they're getting married and he brings gifts as well. Is a Chazra the gift that they bring goes back to the pool for everybody. It's Chazara le'emtza. That Chazara goes back to everybody. Why? Shahashushbini is nigmet bezin. It's not a gift because you're getting married. This is a business arrangement. And if you don't pay it, I can take you to Din Torah. So therefore, it's like a loan that's owed to their father, and any loan that's owed to their father it belongs to the estate, belongs to everybody. If somebody sent his friend Kade Yain V'Kade Shemen, if somebody sent his friend barrels of wine and barrels of oil, Ain Nigbin Bebezin, if somebody sent his friend barrels of wine and barrels of oil, then that's not called Shuzbanim. Either there was no wedding, I just sent you a gift, or even if there was a wedding, even though there's a wedding, since he didn't go to eat there, he just sent gifts to the wedding. He didn't go to eat there. So I don't really. So you can't say that there's a business arrangement. The business arrangement is I'm giving you a present to cover the cost of the food that I ate. That's a business arrangement. But I didn't go to the wedding. I didn't attend. You got married. I didn't attend. I just sent you a gift. It was very nice of you to invite me, so I sent you a gift. Because that's a gift. If this person then doesn't have to bring a gift when this young man gets married, if this person decides to bring a gift, it's directed to the young man and does not form part of the family estate. That's what the Mishnah says. However, the Brisa that disagrees, and we're going to try to reconcile the Brisa with the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, but I mean, it's a question. Sholach la'avi shuzban is that the father sent with his son gifts. Kishi chayzedes, when that person then comes back, chayzedes loy. It says clearly here that it goes back to this son. Not like our Mishnah that says it goes back to the estate. Yishtal la'avi shuzban is that what happens when the father got married? There's somebody sent his father a present because he came to the wedding or that, and many years later, after the father passed away, that person got married. So now this is they owe money to that person. Who pays that? So that definitely the state pays it because it's a loan, a debt that your father has, and it's a mitzvah to pay off your father's debts. So how are we going to reconcile the Mishnah and Brisa? The first Rav Asi comes along and radically changes the Pshat and Mishnah to conform with the Brisa. And the Brisa is so clear that you cannot really tamper with the Brisa. And you know what? We are going to reinterpret the Mishnah, that the Mishnah conforms with the Brisa, that if the father sent one of his sons to the wedding, to this person's wedding and the gift, then that person, when he reciprocates, it goes to the son. And how do we interpret that Mishnah that way? This is how you learn. Tanan nami maslisim. We learn on Mishnah nishtal chala aviv tanan. Not that the father sent, but it was sent to the father. That if it was sent to the father, and now the father owes a debt to that person, that's when we say that you divide it equally amongst the states. So what are you talking about? But it's clearly that the father made some of the brother that they should be the shuzbin and they should go off to another wedding and they should give gifts. To ni limik tzasu. Don't say that he sent out a few to a wedding. That person who came, the father made a wedding for his own son, and he invited that person to come to his son's wedding, but he's the one who did the invite. So therefore, Now the father is the one who has to reciprocate. So limit to his sons, that guy came and brought a present. It says in the Mishnah that now that the Shuzminis is returned, that means that the father has to give. So again, Hachikama. What do you call it? Chazara Ligbais. Not that he came back to return, came back to collect. Nigmis me'emsa. So our Mishnah agrees with the Brisa that if the father sent a particular son to somebody else's wedding, then that person comes and reciprocates, that son is entitled to it. And our Mishnah is talking about when first the father made the wedding for his son and that person came, and now that person getting married, the father owes them money, and that's why the Mishnah says you divide it equally. Nah. The Mishnah and the Brisa talk about two different cases. And what is like a kan bistam? Our Mishnah is talking about. You just said, okay, you didn't say that when you bring the present to that person, I want that person eventually to reciprocate, give it to you. You just said, you sent your son here, take the present and go to that guy's wedding. So then the din is when that person reciprocates, it belongs to the entire estate. But the Brisa is talking about mefader. She clearly said, I'm going to bring the present, and when that person reciprocates, it should go to you. Simple. So there's no conflict between the Mishnah and Brisa. Get a tiny, actually got a Brisa. Sholach la'av Shuzmanis. The father sent Shuzmanis. Kishu Chayzer. He comes back. Chayzer law. It goes back to him. That what if the father sent Shuzmanis? When he goes back, it goes back to this child. Sholach la'av Shuzmanis stam. That's when he said clearly, I want this son to receive the ultimate, the reciprocation. However, Sholach la'av Shuzmanis stam. He just said this on go there without saying that you will receive the benefit. So then it belongs to everybody. Shmuel comes along, a very interesting shot. Shmuel says we're talking about that the Brisa, take the Brisa literally. The father sends a present with his son, and it does go back to that son. And the Mishnah is talking about that it goes back in the middle. You know what happened? Same thing. Mishnah doesn't argue with the Brisa, but this is what happened. So let's say the father has a son, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, and Reuben is the one who goes to that party, right, with gifts on behalf of his father. So the Brisa just said that if that person, when Reuben gets married, that person then comes with a gift. Reuben is the one who receives the gift. But what happened was that Reuben died. So when Shimon when that stranger has to come and bring gifts because he owes a gift to them, what happens? The Yavam stepped into Reuben's shoes. Shimon, the younger brother, stepped into Reuben's shoes, and he inherits everything that belongs to Reuben. So the Mishnah says, but since we're looking at Yavam, a Yavam is the Torah refers to Yavam as a B'chayr. And just like we learned previously in the Gemara, a B'chayr is not entitled to a double portion on something which is owed to the father. It's only the father actually has the physical assets in his possession. That's called the row. And that's what the Mishnah is saying here. That since Reuben is no longer alive, Shimon is standing in Reuben's place, that debt that this third party has, when he brings this when he brings over here the Shuzmanim, and he brings it back, Shimon does not have any special rights to it, even though the Brisa says that Reuben gets the whole thing. That's correct. But Reuben is no longer alive. It's Shimon now is collecting it. And Shimon, as a Yavam, does not have a right to something which is only row and not musik. And therefore, the Mishnah says you put it in the middle. That's what he says. Says the Gemara, Shmuel says, Yavam. And a Yavam is not entitled to take by row kiva musik. Says the Gemara, doesn't make sense. If Reuben is dead, then why in the world is that person bringing presents? The whole idea of that person bringing presents is he's now invited to reciprocally, that he's now invited to the wedding, he eats and participates in the wedding, and he brings presents. But since Reuben is dead and there's no wedding, why in the world would that person have to bring presents in the first place? What presents are we talking about here? So you want to ask. McLeod, so what are you telling me? The Idach Mishalom, that person has to pay the presents, but instead of giving it to the Yavam, he puts it in the general estate. Why can't that person say, the deal was, you'll make a wedding, or Reuben's going to make a wedding, invite me to the wedding, I'll eat and I'll bring a present. So Ruli Shushbini, bring me Reuben, I'll rejoice with him and I'll give him a present. And how do I know it's a valid Tanya? Maybe if Reuben died, or too bad, you still have to give the money. Me like Tanya, didn't we learn? In a case where a person got a woman engaged and then we'll see that anymore, he dies or she dies, whether the kedushin goes back. So it says there that if the minig is that the kedushin, in other words, he gave her a beautiful ring. If the minig is that if they didn't eventually get married, she gives the ring back, is then that's a din. You follow the minig hamakim. The minig is that the woman didn't get married to the guy. She has to return the ring. Makim shenogu shaloy lahachzir, or whatever the present was. If the minig is not to return a marzin, comes along Rabbi Yisrael Bar Abba and he says, the name of the Marukah Shmuel, the same Shmuel, lo yishanu elo shemeis he. That's talking about if she died. If she died, so she cannot go ahead. Depends on the minig. The minig is returned, fine. Minig not returned, it's all to the minig. Ava meis who, if the man, the chassan died, she does not have to return the kedushin to the family estate. And you know why? A marzin, my time, why? She can say, Tnuli baili, give me my husband. I'm ready to get married because he's dead and he's no longer around. Why should I suffer? So we see it's a valid argument. Let's complete the deal. Until the deal, if the reason why the deal is not completed is because of some other circumstance out of my control, I don't have to give any money back. So how can I here too? When it comes to this, the case of Shushbinin, Nema, the guy should say, why should I pay anything? Tnuli Shushbini, let Reuben come back to life and them get married, and I'll rejoice with him, and I'll pay the gift. Omar Rabbi Yosef, we're talking about over here. We're talking about over here. The guy, Reuben was alive. He got married, and this other person came to the party, and he was in the entire Shavuos. But and you only pay after it's all over. Like he's big party at Shemay. I was ready to pay. The guy suddenly died. And therefore, he has to give the money, but not to your Yavam. He gives it to the family estate. And then tomorrow's Gemara we'll talk about this idea that can you say, listen, I'm ready to get married. He's not around. Why should I give the kedusha back? There's an argument perhaps of tonight, or maybe it isn't. As we'll see in tomorrow's Gemara. Have a Shavuot Tov, a good Vach.